Welcome back to Narayana Ice Academy, and here we are going to deal with the daily news analysis part, wherein we are going to cover the most important articles from The Hindu and Indian Express, that too very comprehensively, so that you remain prepared for the examination. Now, before we start, one motivational quote for you. Perfectionism or perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. So many people are idealistic. They think about the perfection in almost everything. The reality is nobody on the earth can actually attain perfection. Perfection in itself is a godly idea. But if we do not think in a perfectionist manner, if we do not have a goal of attaining perfection, then we might not do well enough. But if we keep this goal of perfectionism, at least we will excel in whatever we are doing. Okay, so keep perfectionism in mind as a goal, but don't get frustrated even if you do not achieve that. Okay, so this is the lesson for today, and with this we will start our daily news analysis. Just one key notification that our courses, 2026 course and 2027 course, that is for 1 year batch and 2 year batch, prelims cum mains integrated course, it is active. For more details regarding these courses, you can reach out to our website using the QR code that you must be getting on the screen, or you can reach out to the website using the link provided in the description box. Okay, so moving ahead, let's look at the articles that we are going to discuss today. So I picked up total 4 articles. First article from Indian Express, page number 14, the explained page. This article specifically talks about the caste data, or what we call it as socio-economic caste census of 2011. Now, although in Indian Express they have just talked about socio-economic caste census, but here what we will do, we'll understand what is census, its legal provisions, we'll understand what is caste census, we'll understand what is this SECC, socio-economic caste census, then why it is needed, what are the problems, everything. So comprehensively we'll deal with this particular issue. Okay. Then second article, can Indus water treaty be suspended unilaterally? Now this is from The Hindu. Now, although we have already discussed Indus Water Treaty when it was decided by Government of India that they are going to put it in abeyance or they are planning to suspend it. So we have covered that part in detail. Now today what we will deal with is the basic idea regarding suspension of this treaty unilaterally. Can India on its own take this decision of suspending this treaty? So there is one convention, international convention named as Vienna Convention, which comes into picture. We'll deal with that convention here. Then we have third article. This is from The Hindu. US notifies potential sale of maritime surveillance technology worth rupees over $131 million to India. Now in this we will understand some part related to the Quad, some part related to Indo-Pacific, under which particular initiative US is providing us all these technologies. And then the last article, this one talks about orange economy. Now this term is used by Prime Minister Modi in a recent event, on a recent summit. So we'll understand that summit, we'll understand what is this orange economy. Okay, so these are the 4 articles. Now let's start with the first one without wasting any time as such. So this first article related to socio-economic caste census. Recently we got a news from the government side that they are planning to bring in caste census when the next census will be conducted. With that, the caste related data will also be collected and maybe even published. That's the reason it was in news. So we got this particular article in Indian Express. Now this topic, caste census, SECC, all this becomes important for prelims as well as mains. Specifically in mains, you have GS paper 1 society part. In that, salient features of Indian society, and caste remains an important feature of Indian society. So this part becomes important. Then in GS paper 2, when you read the social justice part or the governance part, there you need to know about the mechanisms, laws, institutions, bodies that are constituted for the vulnerable population in India. When you do this caste census, you are looking for taking some steps in the direction of helping the vulnerable sections. So This topic becomes important for GS1 as well as GS2. Okay, now look at this previous year question asked in the year 2020. Please read the question. I'll give you 5 seconds. Please read. Yes. So has caste lost its relevance in understanding multicultural Indian society? Elaborate your answer with illustrations. So we have observed UPSC keeps on asking question where the core theme remains India's caste system. Okay, that's the reason even we are focusing on the dimension of caste census too. Now, if you read that article, one thing is mentioned that the last and most recent attempt to collect caste-wise data regarding our population that was done lastly in the year 2011. So we have this socio-economic caste census of 2011 which provides us data related to caste of entire Indian population. But after that we made no such attempt. And now we are talking about such a caste census. Now let's start with the basic census. Census, the word census. So census is a document. In this document, you will have the information regarding your population. So in our country, how many people live? How many of them are males? How many are females? How many children? What's the age group? Okay, now such details when you keep on adding, that becomes part of your census. So it's an official, systematic and comprehensive process of collecting, recording and analyzing information of the members of a given population. Okay, now we are making policies for our countrymen. So when you're making policies, we should at least know how many people are there for whom you are making all those policies. At least you should have basic data regarding them. That's the reason census becomes important. Now, as far as India is concerned, we are conducting census since a long time, especially since the time we have British Raj. So if we talk about the first census that was conducted in India, that was in the year 1872, obviously British time period. But it was expected that every 10 years we should do this kind of an exercise. But this was something we saw for the first time. But later on in the 1881, this was done again. And from 1881 onwards, every 10 years, India is conducting census. So 1891 to then 1901. Likewise, it has continued. Okay, even after independence, we have continued the same thing of conducting census every 10 years. Okay, now who is going to conduct it? Government. But who exactly? When we say government, what do we mean by that? So we have Ministry of Home Affairs. Under this ministry, we have a special office, Office of the Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India. Now it is the responsibility of this office to conduct census. That means you see, under central government, this responsibility lies. It's not with the state governments. And how central government is getting this power? You see, if you look at the 7th schedule of the constitution, in that we have union list, state list and concurrent list. If you look at the union list entry number 69, it mentions about census. Okay, so to make any law, the power lies with the parliament, not the state legislature. And parliament brought a law called as Census Act of 1948. So whatever census we are conducting, that is happening under this particular law brought by our parliament. Okay, so that's the reason this office and the Home Ministry has got this power legally to conduct census every 10 years. Okay, now this is the census. Now what is caste census? When we say caste census, we are bringing in the data of caste in the census. So the normal census that whichever we are conducting, whatever information we are getting with that caste, with that census, we will add one more detail. That would be regarding the caste of every individual. So when you add that data, so it's not like only caste data, it would be subcaste also. We have different caste, multicast or subcaste. So all those categories will be mentioned very clearly while we are collecting the data for census. Okay. Now, for the first time, we got any data related to caste included in the census. This happened in the year 1881. Now, this is the same census which I talked. This is the same census after which every 10 years we have been conducting census. So, when Britishers did this, they also added caste related data. So, you can call that census also caste census. Okay. Now, in 1931, now this was also British time period, they did the census, and in that census also caste data was included. But after 1931, we do not see the same process happening. 1931 was the last year when caste census was conducted, caste data was actually collected and published. After that, it did not happen. After independence, if you see, from 1951 to 2011, what we did, we collected the caste data of SC community and caste data of ST community. Only these two communities we have taken caste related data. For all other communities, those belonging to OBCs, those belonging to general category, no such data was taken or no such data was ever published in the census report. Okay, now to show you for better understanding, until 1931, until 1931, if you look at the data related to SC and ST community, the caste related data, that was collected by government and that was published by government. Okay. Now, in the census of 1941, caste related data related to SC and ST community, that was collected, that was published. But in the year 1951 to 2011, do we see any difference? Again, it was collected and published. So understand one thing, as far as SC and ST community is concerned, their data has always been collected and published in all these census. But you see the data related to OBCs, just for the sake of comparison. Here, in the British time, obviously they collected caste data of all the communities and published. But in 1941, it was collected, but it was not published. Only for SC, ST that was published, but for OBC it was not published. If you look at 1951 to 2011, it was not even collected. So there's no question of publishing the data when it was not even collected. You see the difference. So this has been happening. Okay, now you people understand census, now you people understand caste census. Now, one more terminology, one more thing that we get in the news is socio-economic caste census. Okay, when we said census or when we said caste census, that should take place under or that should take place in reality through central government, and that too the home ministry under which that office of registrar lies. Right, from their side we should get all this information. But now in 2011 we did something very interesting. Parallelly, we brought something called socio-economic caste census. Now here, there is this dimension, socio-economic part as well as caste part. So caste related data is certainly added over here. For all the communities, caste related data is collected. Okay. Socio-economic data, when we say, so it includes all the dimensions which are bringing the social or economic standard of people. So let's say they may talk about the education, they may talk about the standard of life, they may talk about the health aspect, all these things they may cover. Okay, so all those datas were collected, and this was conducted in the year 2011 to 2013 by whom? This is one important thing. It was done by Ministry of Rural Development plus Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation. So these two ministries are involved over here. Now understand one thing, this kind of a census, that is socio-economic caste census, this was not done under Census Act of 1948. So we can't call it something that is happening through the parliamentary legal process as such or under any statute or law as such. Okay. Then this covered 24.39 crore households. And what was the main objective? First, to know the socio-economic conditions of people. That was one thing. Second, to collect the caste related data so that we can go for targeted welfare. That means We are bringing schemes, we are bringing so many subsidies, policies, etc. But instead of doing all these things, it would be better if we target the sections which are most vulnerable. If we target them precisely, that would be the right way of going for welfareism. So that was one of the idea over here. So that's the reason they got data related to caste over here. So it was conducted very nicely. Now, this there are some components which you need to understand when it comes to socio-economic caste census of 2011. One is the rural component, one is the urban component. The rural component was taken care of by Ministry of Rural Development. The urban component was taken care by Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, right? And there is one more component that we call as caste census component. So this was taken care of by this RGI. Who is RGI? Let's go back. We see this Office of Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India. This is your RGI. Okay. So all these things are involved when it comes to this SECC 2011. This was done in 2011 only. Now one thing you need to understand or remember as a matter of fact. When all this data was collected, after that, now this includes socio-economic data also and caste related data also. What government did, this socio-economic part, this part they published in the year 2015 to 2016. In this time phase, they published this data, but they did not publish related to the data related to the caste. Okay, so caste data was suppressed. Even though they had taken caste data, they did not publish it. They just discovered or they just published this part. So this part includes your data on housing, land, income, which person is having which occupation, education, assets, disabilities, everything. All this part was mentioned. Clear? Okay. Now, there is one more term that we get in the news, that is caste survey. Now, you must have heard this. Bihar government has done some kind of a caste census, or Jharkhand government has done some kind of caste census. That's not caste census. State governments cannot conduct any caste census as such. They don't have the authority, right? So, what they are conducting in reality is a caste survey and not a census. Census is a different document altogether. Survey is like you're going and asking some questions to the people. So it's like some kind of opinion you're taking or some kind of data you're just collecting for the namesake. Such a survey, such a survey is important because it builds some pressure on the central government. So many political parties try to conduct this kind of a caste survey to build some pressure on the central government so that government considers bringing some caste census, right? But you need to understand this lacks any specific legal backing. For the census or caste census, central government has the legal authority, right? Now, to understand this part in detail, what is the importance of caste census? Why do we need such caste census? We're talking about it since a long time. We have been talking about it, and now in government is ready for it. Why? Why so important? First thing, look at the legal or constitutional dimension. You read Article 340 of the Constitution. This article talks about formation of a commission for examining the conditions of socially and educationally backward classes and make relevant recommendations for them. Now, if you look at the Indian Constitution, we say Indian Constitution builds a welfare state. So people who are at the lower level or who are at the backward stage or who are very vulnerable, for them we try to make some special provisions. We go for a discrimination which is called as positive discrimination. And to do that, our constitution establishes some mechanisms. For example, this commission which is being established over here for the welfare of socially and educationally backward classes. This we see. Then under the constitution we come up with some affirmative actions. For example, reservation is an example of affirmative action. So when you're giving reservation to SC community, ST community or OBC community, that's part of affirmative action, and this shows that our constitution allows this thing. And see this, if you want to give such reservation, to do it with what we call as informed way. If you want to take such decisions, those decisions to be informed, you need data. you need data in the form of census, right? So this part we can easily understand. Then in the reservation, we have this 50% ceiling, which was brought under this judgment of Indrasani case. Now, to get the real data to argument in the case also you need data. Okay, this is the legal part. Then we have one social dimension. Social dimension says that caste remains an important part of life for many people, or maybe almost entire population in India. So when people are marrying or they're getting any political power, they are becoming better in their social sphere, or they are at the lower stage when it comes to their society or social prestige. You look at the caste dimension. While marrying, people look for caste. While voting, people look for caste. So all these things you can't neglect, that caste remains an important part of life, or social life to be more specific, right? Then there are many people who are marginalized, and whether they are marginalized or not, for that also you need caste data. Then for the administration part, so when you are going for administration, what you do is you try to know who are the marginalized sections, some people who are getting excluded from the mainstream. But to know this clearly, you need accurate data. So again, this dimension makes it important for us to conduct caste census. Then there's one moral imperative. Now, sometimes or many a times we talk about this concept wherein we give reservation to, let's say, SC community or ST community or OBC community or whatever. But in that community itself, there are some dominant sections. There are some subcastes which are dominant over here. They are taking more advantage, and there are many caste groups which are at disadvantage. Now, this builds a moral imperative on us to first conduct the caste census so that we can get the real data or real picture, and we will understand whether we really need to go for even the subcategorization. Okay, instead of providing reservation to entire SC group, rather we might need to remove some elite caste sections from this SC community and give it to those who are really vulnerable, or rather who are at the most disadvantage, right? So this is moral imperative. Then political imperative. There's a growing call from opposition parties. Many opposition parties consistently they are giving a call to central government that please conduct caste census. They're building pressure on them, right? Now this is also one dimension. Why? Because they want some transparency, they want some accountability from government side, and this is the basic expectation in a democracy, that we will expect some accountability from our government, right? So these are all the reasons why we are talking about caste census. Okay, why caste census becomes important. Now, it's not like conducting caste census is going to be an easy task, because there will be some implications in different spheres that we cannot neglect. So when we analyze, we look at different dimensions. So look at those issues. For example, there's one major issue, one which is called as casteization of politics, other one which is called as politicization of caste. You see, caste is an important part of our identity. Caste influences our decision making many a times. Our social sphere is more or less affected by this caste. But it's not like only social sphere is affected, many times it's the political sphere. So when caste has some influence on the politics, that we call as casteization of politics. And when politics has some influence on caste, that is your politicization of caste. So you must have seen caste has some impact on politics. Like you see, there are many political parties which are built up. You see political parties which are termed as a party of this community or this particular caste, right? Even people vote, they go for voting and they consider caste as an important identity while voting. So we use this term identity politics also, right? So this vote bank politics or caste identity, all these things, they show that there is some role of caste, and when we are conducting caste census, we are bringing that identity back. Okay, we are bringing that identity back. So we are bringing that politics also back. So identity politics will be getting some boost or some boom. Whether that will be a good thing or a bad thing, this is something we need to think about. Okay, then there is something which we call as social exclusion. See, already in our society there are differences built by this caste system, which is dividing people, right? Some people are socially excluded. Now here, by conducting caste census, what we are first doing is we are bringing in that identity of caste in the picture, and what we are doing is we are increasing the tensions which are already existing, so that is something problematic. Those social fragmentation which we say, that society is already fragmented and we are further fragmenting them, further increasing the tensions and the conflicts. Then some people, especially some constitutional experts, they say that caste census, when you conduct caste census, it completely goes against the values of our constitution. Why? Our constitution has planned or has a vision of bringing in a society which is a modern society. And a modern society is based on the principle of equality, right? It's based on equality. That means such a society will be a casteless society. There won't be any idea of caste in such a society which is modern. But when you're conducting caste census, you're bringing the idea of caste again in our society. Okay, so how are you going to get casteless society? By having public policy which is based on the caste, right? So this is one aspect. And one practical problem that we are going to face is the methodological problem. See, we have so many castes. In that caste, we have so many subcastes, and it's very difficult to come up with some kind of consensus when it comes to these subcaste groups and all. Even if you're conducting a caste census, what people do most of the time, some people will be claiming caste which they do not really belong to. So because some kind of benefit they might be getting. So let's say a person from a lower caste, he or she might say that I belong to the upper caste because of the pride or the social prestige that he might get from it. And a person from upper caste may claim that I belong to a lower caste. Why? Because that may give them the benefit of reservation, right? So considering all these dimensions, we understand that getting the right data in itself for the government is a very difficult task. It's a complicated task. Okay, so these are all the issues when we go for conducting caste census. Now, before I tell you the way forward, this report you need to see. There's a report by Parliamentary Standing Committee on Social Justice and Empowerment for the year 2020. You can quote this particular report in your answers directly. Now, this report clearly said that conducting caste census in the 2021 will ensure that government had accurate data to formulate inclusive policies. When government will go for inclusive policies, they will have the right data set with them. Okay, so please quote this. Now, what would be our way forward? What we will say? First of all, this caste related data, every time we are not getting that data, every time it is not getting published also. So somewhere it is on the whims of the central government. So the central government is solely deciding it on its own whether to conduct caste census or not, whether to publish caste related data or not. Now this kind of arbitrary behavior has to be changed. For that, first we need to amend Census Act 1948. We had to amend it and make this enumeration of caste related data mandatory for union government. First thing. Second, when we are going to get the data, we can take the help of some experts. So some sociologists, some anthropologists, we can take help of them so that we can make a draft list of castes, caste, subcaste, etc. That would be much helpful for us. Then we can prepare a detailed questionnaire with the help of all these experts. You can ask all these questions to people to get the right data. Okay. Then you can make use of technology. So let's say you make use of this AI driven technology or blockchain technology so that you can maintain transparency in the system, right? All this can be done. And at last, you need public awareness. You need nationwide dialogue when you are conducting caste census, when you will get the results of this caste census, that we are doing this for a better cause of welfareism, for social justice, and not for bringing any political advantage out of it, or for going for any kind of political divisiveness. No, we are going for it so that we bring in inclusive policies. Okay, so that's all about this article on the caste census. I hope you understood this topic in a really good way. Okay, so let me check if we have any doubts on this for it so that we. Okay, I don't see any doubts as such. Good. Now we have the second article. Can Indus Water Treaty be suspended unilaterally? That means India can do it unilaterally or not. This is the question. Okay. Now this topic becomes important for prelims as well as mains. Uh, Now here it has been mentioned wrongly. Instead of GS paper 1, rather it belongs to GS paper 2, your international relations part. Okay, so here we talk about international treaties, specifically this Vienna Convention on the law of the treaties. Okay, so this part becomes important. Now, I suggest you people to just read this previous year question asked in the year 2014. Please read so that you will get an idea about what kind of questions UPSC keeps on asking. Please read. I'll give you 5-10 seconds. Done? Okay. Now, what's the news? So recently, Government of India has said that we are planning to suspend, or not exactly they said the suspension, they used a different word, I'll show you that. But this is about Indus Water Treaty. Obviously, Pakistan is concerned. The point is, can we do this? Can we take such a decision? Will it go against international law, or will we be abiding to the international law while cancelling out this kind of a treaty? Okay. Now, the point is, in this water treaty, when this treaty was signed between India and Pakistan, there was one more agency involved, that is your World Bank. Okay. And whenever any country goes for any international agreement, any treaty, and if they do not follow it, that is not considered to be a good practice, that you do not obey the rule of law, that you do not obey to the practice or the promise that you have made. How can you think that you will have a good credibility in the international community, right? That's why treaties are at least ideally supposed to be followed in words and spirit. Now, here we are talking about something called Vienna Convention. Vienna Convention on the Law of the Treaties 1969. Why we are talking about it is because the article says that in case India plans to suspend, or unilaterally take a decision to get out of this Indus Water Treaty, that is going to violate this Vienna Convention on the Laws of Treaties, that is of the year 1969. Now, we should be aware of this treaty particularly. Now, this treaty came in the year 1969. It was adopted in the year 1969 and it came into picture, or came into force, in 1980. Now, this was administered under United Nations. Now, see the legal status part. We call this treaty as Treaty on Treaties. Now, what do we mean by that? See, whenever any country goes for a treaty with any other country, India getting making a treaty with Pakistan, or India getting a treaty done with, let's say, China. Now, in that case, who is going to administer that treaty? What will be the rules of that treaty? Let's say one country suddenly says that I'm not going to abide by this treaty. What kind of interpretation that country is going to take from that treaty? All this will be dealt with using this particular treaty or this convention. Okay, so we call it Vienna Convention in short. It's a treaty on treaties which governs how treaties are made, they are interpreted, they are amended, suspended, or terminated between different states. So all this will be dealt with by this convention. Okay, now this treaty applies only to the written treaties between different states. So different governments, different countries, when they come up with a treaty, they have signed it, they have done a particular, they've written a particular document, they've signed it. In that case only this Vienna Convention is applicable. If you say that we had a treaty but that was a verbal treaty, nothing was written, no, Vienna Convention will not be applicable over there. Okay, now total countries who are party to this particular convention, there are total 114 countries. Is India part of it? The answer is no. India has not signed this Vienna Convention as such. But see, even if we have not signed it, India follows many provisions of this Vienna Convention, considering it as a customary international law. Okay, so we still follow the provisions even if we have not signed it or we have not ratified it. Now, you see some of the provisions which are mentioned in this Vienna Convention. This article number 60, which is important, and article number 62, which is important. 60 article says that a treaty may be suspended in whole or in part if there is a material breach by one of the parties. Material breach. That means, let's say we had a party, we had a treaty with Pakistan, and Pakistan actually is violating that treaty, then that would be a material breach. In that case, India can suspend. India can suspend or cancel out this treaty. Okay, this is one thing. Article number 62 says a treaty may be suspended if there has been fundamental change in circumstances. If there are fundamental changes in the circumstances, so which was not foreseen by the parties at the time of conclusion, fundamentally alter the obligation under treaty, and does not apply if the change is due to the breach by the suspended party or involves boundary treaties. Now, simply, whatever it is saying, in simple terms, we get to know that in case when you had gone for the treaty, the world was different, and now the world is different. When such a condition is there, that we call as fundamental change in circumstances. Okay, so maybe things have got changed, the countries have altogether changed, the policies of countries have changed, many things will be considered over here. So, getting the definition of this fundamental change in circumstance, then itself, it's very complex thing. It's about the interpretation altogether. India might say that we are cancelling it out under this particular clause, but whether the international community will accept it or not, that is something we need to question. Okay, now what India did not use the term suspension, India used the term abeyance. Okay, Indian government says we are putting it on abeyance, this Indus water treaty, and there is no such term as abeyance which is mentioned in this Vienna Convention as such. Okay, so whatever is mentioned is this suspension part. So we might be expecting that India might say that because Pakistan is going for terrorism, now this is completely against this treaty, wherein we are saying that this is fundamental change. They're going for terrorism, they're utilizing terrorism. That's why we may claim that we can cancel it out. But as I said, it completely depends on the interpretation. Now, as far as the interpretation is concerned, if you see the cases or case judgments given by International Court of Justice. So there's a case, this one, Capsicovo Nagy Maros Project 1997. In that case, the court this international court, it was of the opinion that for any political or any economic reason, or even for some security reasons, they are not in a position to accept the fact that they can be considered under fundamental change of circumstances. Okay, so this legal fight might go on. Okay, that's all about the second article. Any doubts? No? Okay. Now the third article. US notifies potential sale of maritime surveillance tech worth $131 million to India. Now, in this article, we are going to focus on only one thing, that is Indo-Pacific maritime domain awareness. Now, this is important. Whatever US government has provided, all these arms and all, that they are doing under this particular initiative. And this becomes important for your prelims as well as mains, because when you talk about this quad grouping, specifically quad grouping is getting focused. Indo-Pacific as a theme is quite important for examination. So in the mains, in this category, you may utilize these points in the answer. For prelims, it's anyway important. Now read this previous year question asked to get an idea of what kind of question can be asked in the paper. Please read, I'll give you 5-10 seconds. Okay. Done? So this question specifically focuses on Trans-Pacific Partnership. So any question on any international agreement, any international what we call it as organization, all these would be important. Any international initiative that becomes important. So here we are talking about a potential sale of worth $131 million from United States side under an initiative called as Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness. So just look at this particular initiative. So first of all, here we are focusing on Indo-Pacific. So Indo-Pacific, now we say the main area of geopolitical tussle would remain the Indo-Pacific area. So earlier that it was Atlantic region, and that was the region where most of the trade of, when we talk about the international trade, the most of the trade was happening in the Atlantic. We talked about US being the most important economy, or let's say G7 countries. They were holding the highest share in the global economics. Now we have some emerging powers like China, India, many other countries, and that's the reason we say the power politics or the economic politics has changed, wherein now we are focusing more on Indo-Pacific area. Okay. Now, in this Indo-Pacific area, the tussle remains between China and other countries, which includes the US-led group, or the group of four countries, that is US, India, Japan, and Australia, which we call as Quad. Right? We already have this Quad grouping, which is working. Now, all these countries, what they are trying to do under the Quad initiative or under their strategy for Indo-Pacific, what they want is free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. So they want to ensure that in the Indo-Pacific region, the rules-based order remains. And are they afraid of someone? Yes, they are afraid of someone, and that is China. China might alter the situation in Indo-Pacific and might come up with its own rules that might not follow the international rules or rules-based order as such, or what we call as free, open Indo-Pacific. Okay. Now, under the same Quad, we have brought this Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness, this initiative. What we do under this initiative is, here we are enhancing real-time maritime monitoring capabilities. So all the surveillance part related to the Indo-Pacific region, For that, whatever we need to do, we might need some sensors, we might need some technologies, we might need some weapons, whatever. Everything will be part of this Indo-Pacific maritime domain awareness. Okay. Now, mostly what we will be focusing on, we will try to identify and track the suspicious activities, the maritime activities in the region. Now, there are some ships, what they do is, it becomes difficult for us to track them. What they do is they go for dark shipping. Dark shipping means they will turn off their location tracking system. So we say that it must be like they are going for some suspicious activities. Maybe they are carrying some weapons and they're planning some attack or whatever. So under this initiative, we will build that surveillance system, we will build that monitoring system. Okay, so this is going to be very important. Now this will cover, when we say Indo-Pacific, actually it will be covering Pacific Islands, Southeast Asia and Indian Ocean region. These three regions will be covered, and we are making use of technology over here. So under this program we will be getting access to many things. For example, India will get this sea vision software, will get access to the commercial satellite based tracking system, etc. All this data and all will be provided. Okay, that's all. Very easy. Yes. Now we have the last article. The last article is related to something called orange economy. Modi champions orange economy at Waves. So what is orange economy? What is this Waves, or what we call as World Audiovisual and Entertainment Summit? This is important for prelims as well as mains GS paper 3. Okay. Now please read this question asked in the year 2019. So 2018. Okay. Please read. I'll give you 5 seconds, not more than that. Done? Here they're talking about Blue Revolution, pisciculture development, all these things. Okay. Now see, recently there was a summit that took place. We name it as Waves 2025 Summit, which took place in Mumbai. And Prime Minister Modi hosted this event. In that event, he talked about orange economy. He said India is going to rise as orange economy. And here he was saying that we are becoming important for creators. So he gave a call for people to create in India and create for the world. Now when we look at this word called creators, we think about YouTube creators. It's not just about YouTube creators, but overall the theme remains the same, or the idea remains the same. When we use this term called orange economy, we are specifically talking about the creative aspect of economy, or creative economy. So all those economic activities wherein there is importance given, or the main base is the creativity, culture or intellectual property, that is called as creative economy, or also now termed as orange economy. So this term actually came in the year 2013, and nowadays it is becoming very popular. Now it is said that creative industries, they account for 3% of the global GDP. Now this is the economic dimension. So you can see the economic potential this part of industry carries. This is one thing. Second thing is its employability, or employment potential. If you see the employment potential, already it employs more than 30 million people globally. So even Prime Minister Modi in his speech was saying that it has the potential enough to cross even the manufacturing sector. That means we can have more people in the creative economy, or this orange economy, than the manufacturing sector. So it's going to be a very good sector for us, for specifically for countries like India. People will be absorbed in these industries. Now when we say orange economy, it includes many sectors. For example, we have visual arts like painting, sculptures, etc. We have performing arts like music, dance, theatre, etc. Then we have media and entertainment, film, television, nowadays the OTT platforms which are coming up with digital content, the YouTube, all those things. Then design and fashion, advertising and marketing, software and video games, publishing and literature, and cultural tourism. All these segments are part of this orange economy. Okay, and you see this summit which took place, World Audio Visual Entertainment Summit. In this summit, PM Modi has given a call wherein he's saying that you can create in India and create for the world. You can try to remember this. You can even study this theme, waves of culture, creativity, and universal connectivity. Okay, so this is the article done. Now comes the time for some practice questions. First of all, let's start with the mains practice question. So, examine the key challenges in conducting a caste-based census in India and suggest measures to address them. A 10 marker question. I'll give you few seconds to just brainstorm whatever we have studied. That's enough to answer this question. So just brainstorm for few seconds. I'll tell you the answer. Done? Now see, they specifically asked about challenges and measures, two dimensions, right? First of all, we'll introduce the caste census part, okay? Then we'll talk about the challenges first. So there are methodological challenges that we talked about, political challenges, the social fragmentation part, constitutional conflict, that it goes against the vision of the constitution of caste-less or equal. We have this principle of equality for a modern society. So all these are challenges. What are the solutions? Making that amendment, bringing anthropologists, the experts, bringing the questionnaires, and going for using some technology and going for public awareness. So these are basic parts we can mention, and we can conclude saying that, is caste-based census necessary? In the conclusion, you should say yes. Don't say no. Getting data is a good thing. Using this data for a negative cause, for vote bank politics or fragmenting the societies, that's a wrong thing. But as a tool, this can be used for the welfare of the people, and we'll come to know the reality only when we see the data. That's why we need it. Okay, now some practice questions from the daily news analysis of yesterday as in the day before yesterday, right? So with reference to tree plantations and afforestation efforts in India, consider the following statements. Green India Mission is part of National Action Plan on Climate Change. Okay, no problem. Agroforestry has been shown to improve soil fertility and increase farm income. That is all okay. Both statements seem to be right. Now, EU's carbon border adjustment mechanism is already in force and affects all imports into EU. No, this is wrong. It is yet to come into force. It has not yet come into force. So the statement becomes wrong. Third is wrong. That means 1 and 2 is the answer. Okay, easy. Then, with reference to satellite internet services like Starlink, consider the following statements. Number 1, Starlink operates in low Earth orbit and aims to provide internet access directly to user terminals. That's true. No issues. India has partnered with Starlink through its public sector telecom company BSNL. No, there's no such deal as such. Rather, Starlink is partnering with private companies like Airtel, right? So this is wrong. And the proliferation of private satellite constellations has raised concerns over orbital debris and data sovereignty. That's very true. Debris is increasing in numbers, right? So 1 and 3, B is the right answer. With reference to USTR's Special 301 report, it is a WTO backed mechanism. No, this is absolutely wrong. This is coming from USTR. In the question itself, they have given the answer. So this is wrong. India has been placed on priority watch list in 2025 edition. That's true. It was done. And this report is prepared by World Intellectual Property Organization. No, it is prepared by USTR. Right? So I think this is the easiest question to solve. So 2 only is the right answer. Now the next one. Increased monsoon rainfall always leads to an increase in marine productivity due to higher nutrient availability. Now, this is not going to happen always. You may say sometimes this happens, that's fine, but always this makes it an extreme statement. And the reason is actually this one: there's turbidity caused by runoff from increased monsoon rainfall, which can reduce light penetration in coastal waters, affecting phytoplankton growth. That is true. Okay, this is the real reason why this statement is wrong. First statement is wrong. Third, Indian Ocean dipole has no influence on marine ecosystem. This is absolutely wrong. How come you can say such an extreme statement, right? So first is wrong, third is wrong, two only is the right answer. Easy again. Then these are the questions from today's article. So these will be homework for you people. Now I'll suggest just pause the screen and attempt these questions. Either you can write the answer in the comment box, or there's a link given. Click on the link and you will reach to the website where you'll get this question. Attempt it, you'll get the answer right now. Or else, if you have patience, then we'll get the answers tomorrow in the daily news analysis. Okay, so pause and attempt it. This is question number 1 on Vienna Convention. Question number 2 on orange economy. Pause the screen and attempt it. And third is the question on Indo-Pacific maritime domain mechanism or this awareness. Okay, so this is your homework. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you so much for joining.